4:31 p.m. The Boeing 747 that will become TWA Flight 800 to Paris arrives at JFK. It's 25 years old and has more than 16,000 flights under its belt. Tanker trucks move in to fuel up the plane. The ground crew pumps 114,000 liters of Jet A fuel into the 6 wing tanks. It's more than enough to fly to Paris. The biggest tank, the center wing tank, can stay as it is, almost empty. 6 p.m. 212 passengers board Flight 800 in good time for a 7 p.m. takeoff. In charge of the crew this evening is Captain Stephen Snyder. With 4,700 hours of flying time on 747s, he's one of TWA's most experienced pilots. Flying alongside Snyder is Captain Ralph Kevorkian, another TWA veteran. 7 p.m. Captain Snyder and the flight crew are ready to go. But there's a problem. One of the passengers is not on board, but her bags are already in the hold. In 1988, Pan Am 103 exploded in mid-air over the town of Lockerbie in Scotland, killing 270 people. Terrorists checked a bag containing a bomb into the hold, but didn't board the plane. Since then, planes cannot take off with a bag in the hold if the passenger who checked it is not on board. The plane is delayed while ground staff hunt for the missing passenger. Outside, it's 28 degrees Celsius, and on the asphalt of the apron, the jumbo is getting hot. As the minutes tick by, air conditioning units under the fuselage keep the passengers cool. 50 minutes go by, and there is still no sign of the mystery passenger. At 7:59 p.m., gate personnel contact the crew.
TWA Flight 800, sorry about that delay. We have confirmation that the passenger is on board. They were on board the whole time.
8:19. At last, Captain Kevorkian throttles up the 747. Flight 800 lifts off an hour and 20 minutes late. TWA 800's flight path will take it through some of the most congested airspace in the USA. It will also skirt the boundary of a U.S. military zone to the south. Air traffic control keeps flights well clear of any restricted airspace during weapons testing.
TWA 800, heavy New York departure, radar contact, climb and maintain 11,000.
8:31. Flight 800 climbs into the evening sky. Eastwind Airlines pilot David McLean is flying a 737 into Trenton, New Jersey. He sees the jumbo jet ahead of him.
It was a nice night, good visibility. There's a lot of traffic going out there, so you always got to keep your eyes out.
Air traffic control clears Flight 800 to climb to its next level.
TWA 800, heavy turn left heading 050, vector climbing around traffic.
Climb to 15,000.
Crew and passengers settle in for the flight. Then, suddenly,
And I thought, gee, it must have 200 to 300 people on board. I thought it was a bomb.
at air traffic control, Flight 800 suddenly disappears off radar screens. Eastwind's pilot David McLean reports in to air traffic control.
We just saw an explosion out here, about 16,000 feet. Just went down into the water.
Air traffic control tries to raise Flight 800 on the radio.
TWA 800, if you hear center, ident.
There's no response.
TWA TWA 800, if you hear center, I didn't.
The terrible truth starts to dawn.
TWA 800, center.
Thousands of meters below, a helicopter from the Air National Guard flying on a training mission is caught beneath the blast.
I looked over my right shoulder, and this fire exploded across the sky and came down like a curtain, like napalm.
Flaming aircraft debris starts to fall all around them.
Some of it was still on fire. We actually saw embers.
Now the helicopter crew is in danger. If debris hits the rotor blades, they too could crash into the water.
We have to get out of here.
The helicopter makes it away safely. They race to get help. First on the scene is the Air National Guard rescue helicopter. The sea below them is on fire. A small armada of 40 Coast Guard boats plus police and civilian craft joins the search. In the darkness, rescuers scan the wreckage for signs of life. (9:30 p.m.) The news is filtering back to staff on the ground at JFK. TWA begins to contact relatives of the crew and check the list of passengers. Meanwhile, reports of the disaster start to break on the news channels.
This is the latest we have on the flight that crashed tonight of TWA Flight 800 into the waters off Long Island, New York. This was on its way.
Among those watching are Aurelie and Walter Becker. They realize it's the flight of their daughter, Michelle.
The first pictures you saw were shot from the helicopter with the debris field and the flames coming out of the water. And I said, oh my God.
747 aircraft has exploded in midair about 20 miles south of New York's Long Island into the Atlantic.
Rescue, we know, is a nightmare. They are looking for people who survived this.
5 a.m. The sun rises on an ocean littered with the remains of Flight 800. Boat crews bring pieces of wreckage to the Coast Guard station at East Mauritius. Rescuers have recovered 73 bodies, but no survivors. Jamie Hurd's father, Jim, realizes that any hope his 29-year-old son made it through alive is gone.
It's not a good time in your life. You know, you're just really thinking about one thing. And to me, the one thing was that I was going to go get Jamie and bring him home.
News reaches the FBI and New York Assistant Director James Kallstrom. Kallstrom immediately suspects the crash is no accident.
My gut told me that this was probably an intervention by some criminal, some terrorist.
Kallstrom recalls the loss of Pan Am Flight 103 over Lockerbie in Scotland 8 years earlier. Terrorists blew apart the Pan Am plane, also a 747, with a bomb planted in the hold. It was the first time terrorists had brought down a U.S. airliner. Now Flight 800 may have fallen victim to a second terrorist attack. If so, how did the terrorists get the bomb on board?
It could have been a carry-on bag. It could have been a piece of luggage that was stored in the belly of the plane. It could be cargo.
The FBI launches a major criminal investigation. Within hours, hundreds of agents and police rush to the coast. Less than 12 hours after Flight 800 plunged burning into the water, investigators survey the impact site. Even hardened law officers like Kallstrom are shocked by the destruction.
I'll never forget the scene of seemed like miles of debris.
Pilots who were near the jet when it exploded tell FBI agents that the blast came out of the blue. But witnesses on the ground report something highly suspicious.